What if I told you the greatest tragedy of old age is not decline, but regret? I have identified 9 self-inflicted chains that guarantee your last years are spent in misery. If you are forging even 3 of these, you are actively building a prison for your future self. Pay close attention. The 9th chain is the one most people mistake for freedom, the silent corrosion. When I look at how we treat our elders, a deep sadness takes hold. I see people who have journeyed through life, collected decades of stories, and fought countless battles, yet they fade away in quiet rooms or walk through their days like ghosts. Their lungs draw breath, but their spirit is starved. They occupy space, but they have ceased to truly inhabit their lives. And the brutal truth, this state of living death is not a destination you arrive at. It's a path you choose, link by link, with every chain you add. The first chain you forge yourself is the dead weight of grievance. I have sat with so many older people whose souls are bent under the weight of a bag of stones they refuse to put down. Each stone is a past injustice, a betrayal, a disappointment. They polish these stones daily with their thoughts, telling the same stories of who hurt them, how they were wronged, how life was unfair. This collection of grievances becomes their most prized possession, the story they tell themselves and everyone else. But carrying a bag of stones only makes your own journey harder. The person who handed you the stone is long gone, living their own life, while you are the one straining under its weight every single day. The elders who carry this burden speak with a heaviness that repels others. They find new offenses everywhere, and then are mystified when their children visit less, when their calls go unanswered, when the silence in their home becomes deafening. I've seen this chain crush more spirits than any physical ailment. The body might be frail, but the soul dies first, crushed by the weight of old stones. When you cling to old hurts, you are not punishing your offender. You are sentencing yourself to a life of hard labor. You are choosing to haul the misery of yesterday into the precious light of today. You are letting the ghosts of the past rob you of your remaining time. The way to break this chain is not to pretend the hurts didn't happen. It's to realize that dropping the stones is an act of self-preservation. It is about choosing to walk freely, not to prove a point to someone who is no longer watching. The voluntary cage, the second chain that guarantees a miserable old age, is the self-imposed cage of isolation. I see people methodically unplugging themselves from the grid of human life. They say no to dinner invitations. They let calls go to voicemail. They stop going to the places that once brought them joy, convincing themselves they prefer the quiet. But what they are really building is a cage, one comfortable bar at a time. Each small withdrawal seems logical, a step toward peace. But the cumulative effect is a self-imposed solitary confinement that starves the soul of connection, laughter, and the vital energy that only comes from being with other people. I've met elders who haven't had a meaningful conversation in weeks, who have no one to call if they fall, no one to share a small victory with, no one to simply witness their existence. They live in homes that have become museums of a life once lived, surrounded by relics of relationships they no longer nurture. They slowly become invisible, fading from the world long before their heart stops beating. This tragedy is often rooted in a false shield of self-sufficiency. They say, "I don't want to be a burden," but the deeper fear is the vulnerability of admitting they need others. They fear being seen as weak, so they choose the profound weakness of loneliness. But human beings are wired for connection. We are pack animals. The elders who flourish know this. They actively maintain their tribe. They understand that love and community aren't optional luxuries. They are the very oxygen the spirit needs to breathe. The closed book. The third chain is allowing your mind to become a closed book, believing your story is already written. I meet so many people who, upon retirement, slam this book shut. They stop learning, stop questioning, stop being curious. They trade deep engagement for passive entertainment, and then wonder why a fog of meaninglessness descends upon them. Your mind is a garden. If you stop planting new seeds of knowledge, stop challenging old weeds of bias, and stop tilling the soil with curiosity. It will become barren and overgrown. You become trapped in the same few chapters of your life, endlessly reading old opinions and outdated beliefs, unable to write a new ending. I have seen people with extraordinary minds shrink into themselves because they accepted the lie that learning is a young person's game. They stopped reading books that made them think. They stopped seeking out people who challenged them. They decided they were too old for new tricks. And so, their world shrank to the size of their living room. The most alive older people I know are those who see themselves as lifelong students. They are learning to use a new app, debating politics with passion, or finally reading the classic novels they never had time for. They understand that an active mind is not about staying young, it's about staying alive. When you keep the book of your mind open, you retain your vitality, your relevance, and your capacity for wonder. You are not just a collection of memories, you are a living library of wisdom, the ignored vessel. The fourth chain is treating your body like a disposable container, instead of the only home you will ever have. I see elders who have surrendered to physical decline as if it were a non-negotiable fate. They accept aches, stiffness, and weakness as a mandatory sentence for living long. They stop moving, they give up on strength, and they begin to resent the very vessel that has carried them through life. But your body is your lifelong partner, not your adversary. It has served you for decades, healed you, and enabled every experience you've ever had. It deserves reverence, not resignation. When you give up on your body, you give up on your ability to experience the world. The great deception is that most of what we call aging is actually a result of disuse, not decay. The frailty, the chronic pain, the loss of mobility, so much of this is preventable, a direct consequence of lifestyle choices. I have seen people in their 80s who are more agile and vital than people 30 years younger. The secret isn't genetics, it's consistency. They chose to walk when it was easier to sit. They chose to stretch when it was easier to stiffen. They chose to honor their body as a sacred partner, not a broken down vehicle. Physical health in old age isn't about looking like you're 30. It's about preserving the freedom to walk in a park, to play with your grandchildren, to live without constant pain, and to inhabit your final years with dignity and strength. The Great Vanishing Act. The fifth chain is performing the Great Vanishing Act of purpose. I see people who build incredible careers, gain immense wisdom, and have a profound impact on the world, only to decide that on their 65th birthday, they will simply disappear. They tell themselves they have earned the right to be useless, to have no mission, to have no reason to get out of bed. But a human without a purpose is like a ship without a rudder, drifting aimlessly until it runs aground. We need a why that pulls us forward, a compass that points us toward a meaningful morning. When you abandon your purpose, you abandon the engine of life itself. I've seen vibrant, successful people wither into depression and illness within a year of retirement. They thought they wanted freedom from work, but what they found was the prison of irrelevance. They had no problems to solve, no one to help, no value to offer. The elders who thrive never retire from contributing. Their purpose simply transforms. They mentor, they volunteer, they create, they become the bedrock of wisdom for their families and communities. They understand that purpose isn't a job title. It's the conscious choice to matter, to share your gifts, and to remain an active player in the game of life until the very end. The anchorless drift. The sixth chain is attempting to navigate the great ocean of mortality in a tiny raft with no anchor. As the body weakens, as friends pass away, as the horizon of your own life comes into view, you need something more profound than memories or possessions to hold you steady. I've talked with so many elders who spent their lives focused on the material world, only to find themselves terrified and adrift when facing the ultimate questions. What was the point of it all? Who am I without my job, my health, my roles? What is this great mystery of death that I am approaching? Without a spiritual anchor, whether that's found in religion, philosophy, nature, or deep self-inquiry, these questions become a storm of existential terror. People without this anchor desperately cling to the shoreline of youth, trying to deny the vast and inevitable ocean before them. But those who have cultivated an inner life, a spiritual foundation, approach this final voyage with a sense of calm and acceptance. They have an anchor. They know they are part of a story much larger than their own small life. And they see death not as a terrifying void, but as a final, natural transition. This spiritual work is about forging the inner strength to face the end with peace, not panic. The house on sand. The seventh chain is building your financial house on the sand of irresponsibility, ensuring your final years are battered by the storms of poverty and dependence. I have seen countless people who earned well for 40 years end up in a state of constant financial anxiety in old age. They never learned the simple, powerful discipline of planning for a future when they could no longer work. Financial peace in old age isn't about being rich. It's about having the dignity of choice, the freedom from being a burden, and the simple security of knowing you can afford medicine and a decent meal. The tragedy is that building a solid financial foundation is not complex, but it demands one thing our culture hates: delayed gratification. People spend their lives chasing today's wants with tomorrow's money, assuring themselves that they'll get serious about saving one day. But that day always arrives, and for those who are unprepared, it is a day of reckoning. The stress of poverty in old age is a poison that seeps into everything: your health, your relationships, your ability to find any joy in the time you have left. The elders who age with a sense of security almost universally did one thing right: they respected the future. They understood that while money can't buy happiness, a lack of it can guarantee misery. The final truth: the eighth chain is running from death, treating it as a monster to be outsmarted rather than a reality to be met with wisdom. Our society teaches us to fear and deny mortality, to see any discussion of it as giving up. But this desperate avoidance creates the very terror it tries to prevent. I have sat with many people in their final days, and the ones who suffer the most are not those in the most physical pain. They are the ones who are spiritually unprepared. They spent a lifetime running from the shadow of death, and now that it's upon them, they have no resources to face it but terror and regret. But the ninth and most devastating chain, the one that truly locks you in a miserable old age, is this: mistaking the end of a chapter for the end of the book. It is the failure to understand that aging is not a process of becoming less, but a process of becoming whole. It is the final, richest chapter where all the plot lines of your life converge into wisdom. When you fight aging, desperately trying to read the chapters of your youth instead of embracing the magnificent story you are now living, you miss the entire point. You see wrinkles as failures, not as evidence of laughter and tears. You see slowness as a weakness, not as an opportunity for deliberation. The people who inspire us in old age are not the ones who look the youngest. They are the ones who have become like ancient, powerful trees. Their value is not in their fleeting blossoms, but in the depth of their roots, the strength of their gnarled bark, and the profound wisdom they embody just by being.